Penn State at Northwestern, it's not a battle of who has better SAT scores. Penn State's going to roll this Saturday.
Well, after the generation of greatness and the salute to Trey game, now it's time to hit the road.
Talk about starting fast. What happened to this second half team? They're outscoring teams 73-0 in the first quarter. I'm going to tell you what's next. The Blue-White Tailgate is coming up next.
And we welcome everyone to the Blue-White Tailgate. Steve, Trey, Todd, Allie, and Jay a little bit later in the show. We'll hear from them. Okay, so they win by 31 points. Not hearing complaints.
It's just amazing how things have turned. I mean, we win by 31 points, and everyone's worrying about the offensive line. Why can't we rush the ball? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And 2 years ago, we were hoping to be 500.
It is interesting. I've never seen a 5-0 team with so many issues to discuss. I mean, look, you win games with your defense, special teams, or offense. Bottom line, you win games, and that's what they're doing.
All right, so we get now to the Dr. Sorbera momentum moment. And the momentum moment actually is the part you're not going to see. It happens to be where Indiana defers on the toss.
Why would he do this, Steve?
Okay, and so we'll kick the ball off to Saquon Barkley. The big block is at the beginning with Koa Farmer at the 15-yard line. And after that, Mr. 4.33 speed into the end zone for a touchdown.
and they saw this coming. 2 days prior to that, Saquon was talking about at the end of the game that his dad had looked at him. They were FaceTiming on Thursday, his dad, his mom, and Saquon looked at his dad and was like, what? What do you're going to run one back. You're going to run one back on Saturday. And sure enough, first opening kickoff, he did.
Yep, first time since Chaz Powell in 2011 that Penn State's run a kickoff for a touchdown. 28-point first quarter for the Nittany Lions, but James Franklin would like to see a complete game.
Starting fast tonight, really helped us. What I wasn't pleased was the inconsistency. I thought first quarter we played really well. I thought the fourth quarter we played pretty well. And I felt like we took the foot off the gas a little bit in the second and third quarter. Last year we talked about, starting out fast. I think we've done that this year, but we still got to be able to play for 4 quarters at a very, very high level.
And again, that's where it is right now. That's where it is. You shut the team out 17-0 in the second half. So, okay, where was the issue? The second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think everyone is trying to look for something. We're kind of reading into it a little bit too much. I mean, the fact is that, Penn State's got a lot more talent than they've had the last 5 years. They're playing against inferior opponents. And, as the schedule starts to get tougher, we're going to see what kind of football team we have, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, look, 28-0, sometimes it's natural to let your foot off the gas. I mean, you got the game in hand a little bit at that particular point. I think it shocked everyone, maybe even the kids themselves that are out there on the field. But they did correct it. What I love to see is the defense. When does the narrative start to change about, well, no, maybe the offense hasn't been perfect, but the defense is less than 10 points a game. It's first in the Big Ten for allowed with scoring. They're doing a great job.
And we're going to get to them a little bit later in the show. Time now for our PSECU game update. And with that, Allison Luthman.
Hey guys, welcome to your PSECU pregame update, bringing you everything you need to know before kickoff on Saturday. Penn State special teams has done an exceptional job so far this season, and that was highlighted last Saturday against IU with 2 special teams touchdowns, one by punt return, one by fumble recovery. This is actually the first time that Penn State has had 2 touchdowns by special teams in the same game since 2001 when they were at Illinois. And looking ahead to this Saturday, you could almost call it a bit of a family reunion. Penn State's Billy Fessler and Blake Gillikin both have brothers playing for Northwestern. Blake's brother Tyler is a long snapper, and Billy's brother Charlie is a wide receiver for Northwestern. James Franklin said that he talked to the Gillikin's mother, and she said they handle that, but they've already made jerseys that are half Penn State, half Northwestern, and they'll spend the first half of the game on one sideline and then just move on over to the other for the second half to keep it fair. So that's something to be on the lookout for, and that has been your PSECU pregame update.
Thank you very much, Allison. Great job as always. Now Northwestern. Northwestern's in a rebound mode, Todd. They've been up and down. They've played their better opponents on the road, and they've lost them both.
Well, people were talking about them being a contender in the West. It doesn't really take that much to contend in the Big Ten West, but it certainly takes better efforts than they had against Duke earlier in the year when they gave up 41 points. It's hard to tell what kind of team this really is because they've gotten, hammered on the road and well, I would say hammered against Wisconsin. They hung in the game for a little bit, but then Wisconsin's kind of a mystery too. So we don't know what we're going to get. We do know that we're taking, Penn State's taking a more talented team to Evanston on Saturday.
Well, there are a lot of people who are a believer in trap games. I'm not a believer in a trap game. I never have been, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Are you a believer in trap games?
What's a trap game? It's ridiculous. It's people in the media saying stuff. I've never heard of a trap game. I don't know what that means. The only thing I do know is that we're playing at noon, which is 11 o'clock their time, and I think our kids are whatever, but they're college kids. They're going to be in a hotel the night before the game. I mean, they'll be ready.
James Franklin says in a lot of ways Northwestern reminds them of Iowa.
You know what you're getting with them. They're going to have a few things in the game plan, offense, defense, and special teams like we all do, but I'd probably compare them a lot like Iowa to the two most tenured coaches in the Big Ten. Their staffs are the same way. Very little change in his career there and his staffs. Offensively, defensively, and special teams, they're going to play hard. They're going to be fundamentally sound. They got good schemes, but what you see is what you get.
You know what? Interesting. The point he makes about the staffs thinking the same thing. It's the same assistant coaches year in and year out for Fitz out at Northwestern. Coming up, we'll take a look at the Nittany Lion offense as we continue with the Blue White Tailgate after this.
It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. The whole thing.
Just enjoy it.
And a catch, it makes everybody miss. And I think there are people who think that Blake Gilligan should not have a punt this year. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think that's what people think. They shouldn't have punted this year.
Team scores 45. The offense scored over 30 themselves, right? Couple of special teams touchdowns. Offense scores over 30. Well, Trace isn't doing good. Well, he threw for over 300 yards, 23 completions, a couple of touchdowns. Barkley, yes. I mean, Indiana did a good job. They did a good job last year on Barkley, tying him up at the line of scrimmage or keeping his yardage rushing totals down. Still returned a kick, still threw one for a touchdown, and they win by 30 plus. So, I'm not sure what all the debate is about.
There's an old saying around here from Joe Paterno, you either get better or you get worse. You never stay the same. So Allison Luthman takes a closer look as to how Penn State can get better.
Guys, we all know that sometimes winning can mask mistakes, but Penn State's players and coaches are all well aware that despite their 5-0 record, they still have a couple of things that they need to work on. Let's take a quick look at what James Franklin had to say after Saturday's game.
We've got to get better. We've got to identify those things. We've got to spend a lot of time on them on Sunday and Monday, working it, finding ways to get better in those areas. A lot of it's just fundamentals. A lot of it's just finishing blocks on offense. Defensively, being a little bit more consistent, gap sound, things like that.
Some of the stats that he was a little bit concerned about was the fact that Trace McSorley was sacked 5 times. The entire team had only 39 net rushing yards, and this led James Franklin to say that his focuses this week were protection, just improving the run game, and consistency. Ryan Bates said he believes it all comes down to execution.
They brought people we couldn't account for, which most of the time that was the case. We were in an inside zone. They brought corner blitz. We had no one to account for that. And then we ran some stuff into certain blitzes with certain fronts that it didn't match up numbers wise. We just got to better execute.
Those were all focuses during practice this week, and we'll see how this coming week's numbers match up. Guys.
It's interesting when you have a running back like Saquon Barkley say, well, they got to be a better running football team. And in terms of consistency, there's too many negative plays in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that injury at right tackle, you got a redshirt freshman there. He's playing in the Big Ten. Will Fries, obviously a Jersey guy, great. And I think that they had to get more consistency there. They're much better than they were last year, better than the year before. And exactly, you have to just keep improving.
Family Clothesline Offensive Player of the Week is Deshaun Hamilton. Todd, he now sits atop the record book all time, and he did it in spectacular style, I thought.
Absolutely. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy as well. And they worked the fade route in this game to get him open. And, you know, he goes in spurts, doesn't he? He'll disappear for just a couple of games, and then all of a sudden he'll step up with such a huge effort. And they needed it on a day where they're stacking the line of scrimmage. Someone in the wideout core has got to come out and get open and make some plays. And it was Deshaun on Saturday.
Sixth time in his career, he's had a 100-yard receiving game, first one this season, the first one he's had since the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. So let's take a look at the rewritten record book at Penn State. And there's Deshaun Hamilton trying to now zero in on 200 career catches. That's a pretty impressive list behind him. Deion Butler, Allen Robinson, Bobby Ingram.
And guys, the interesting thing about that list is I asked Deshaun afterwards, I said, how familiar are you with this list? And he said he started to look at it in the offseason and see some of the names. And immediately he started to say, well, to be at the top of the list, and he goes, well, look, I've done it over 4 years. He goes, some of those guys balled out in just a couple of years, A-Rob. So he was almost embarrassed to be at the top of the list, but he belongs to be there. I mean, he's had a great college career.
You know what? Military family, brother has autism. He's a very humble yes sir, no sir. He was an intern with the State College Spikes this past summer, helping run the scoreboard, running camera, things like that. So he's done a lot of things, and he's just a very down-to-earth young man. Joel Confer, drive of the game. Penn State's leading this game 7-0, and Indiana rips off a big run. Christian Campbell forces a fumble, recovered by Jason Kabinda, and Penn State goes to work right here. Like, there's Hamilton again, Trey.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you see a little juke move there. You know, got tied up, but obviously part of the offense. And then here's McSorley, throws a nice route here, is that Juwan Johnson. So, Penn State's got a lot of weapons, and if you're going to defend one guy, you're going to give up something else.
That guy, Todd, appears to have some talent.
Yeah, 26. He can do some things. That little crossing route to Juwan Johnson, I think that's going to be an important route moving forward, whether it's him or anyone else. They've got to get some quick passes off to relieve some of the pressure for Trace as he finishes the drive.
And there's that little quarterback draw, that little jab step on the quarterback draw. He sold it well, scored on the play, and that's our Joel Confer drive of the week. And you know what? Now they got to go to Northwestern, which runs a very similar offense to Penn State, but Thorson doesn't have the mobility that Trace McSorley does. But you look at that offense, pretty good. Thorson, Jackson, they've got some guys that can play. Yeah,
no, they certainly can. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's kind of like with us, with Trace, it's like more of a big play offense. We throw the ball down the field more. I mean, I think with Northwestern, they try to control the ball, the running game, although Justin Jackson is a little bit banged up, so we'll see how much he has a chance to play. But Thorson, he'll just dump it, and try to guys make a miss, and it's going to be important for us to tackle well in the open field.
Yeah, and the big if at this game for Thorson is if he has time to throw, because the offensive line does not protect well. Penn State is going to come after him, and they're going to come after him in numbers.
He's a 36% passer, according to Pro Football Focus, under pressure with 3 interceptions, no touchdowns this year when he's been pressured. For Penn State, people are talking about the offensive line again. And some people are looking at saying, is it a major problem? Well, James Franklin says there's just a small problem.
Well, I think the biggest difference for us is just straining a little bit longer. Finishing blocks, from an aggressive demeanor and from an aggressive perspective. That's the next step for us. Instead of just being, content with covering my guy up, let's create a little bit more space. Let's grind, let's strain, let's finish a little bit more. And I think that I could say that about the O-line. I could say that about every position.
And if you give that extra little half second, what does that mean for Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, another 20 yards is what it gives him. And I'll translate that soundbite. He wants some big nasties is what he's looking for, right, Trey?
Yeah.
You want some big nasties up front. Let's get it done up there.
Yeah, I mean, having like a personality, like a defensive player where you're really trying to take the fight to the offensive guy, the offensive lineman, they have to have that kind of mentality. It's not going to take much to get Saquon Barkley open.
And they've got some playmakers in the secondary, Northwestern does. That's why the running game is going to be so important in a game like this. Godwin Igwebuike, who's not making many tackles on this broadcast, is really a good football player. The Penn State defense has been a constant so far. We talk about them after this. he may not be a defensive player. People have asked about Irvin Charles. Now he hasn't made any catches. He's not involved. That guy's now made 2 big special teams plays in back-to-back weeks. He's the guy down the ball at the 1-yard line before the safety.
Yeah, I mean, special teams is all about your heart, and those guys don't really get the credit when things are going well because everyone just assumes they're going to down the ball where they're supposed to or punt it where they're supposed to, whatever. But the fact is, he's a guy who's working hard. He knows he's got an uphill battle because we're very deep at wideout, and the fact is he's just trying to play and contribute any way he can
and make a difference, make an impact in the game, and that's exactly what he's doing on this special teams.
Yeah, no question about that. Now our family clothesline defensive player of the week, and when you rack up 14 tackles, you get a sack and a fumble recovery, you're normally going to be that guy. He and Marcus Allen are the 2 leaders on this defense. Jason Kabinda and Marcus Allen.
Linebacker, Jersey. That's
Come on,
your
this
cue,
is
Trey.
you.
He's
Jersey
linebacker, number 40, get the neck roll. I mean, no, seriously, I've been waiting all year for him to kind of have a breakout performance. I think this was the one. I think he really picked up his game a bunch, and I'm really happy for him. Again, he's a leader of the team. The guys like him, and they rally around him.
And we see offensive players get locked in, right, during a game. Kabinda was locked in that, but he admitted it afterwards. He said he had a little extra juice going in that game. He could his instincts felt a little bit more sound, a little bit more pure as he went for it. And man, it showed. He was all over the place. And 6 of the tackles were solo. The next best was 2. There was a bunch of guys with 2 solo tackles. So he was doing a lot of the plays on his own. It wasn't just assisted tackles. He was out there wrapping them up.
We always refer to those as JOPs, jump on pile. Assisted tackle, jumped on pile.
Yeah.
Great. Let's take a look at the Penn State defense in terms of the numbers so far. And first, and third. And when you're first, usually in the numbers that you're above, third in pass defense, you can't ask for any more, Todd.
Pick any of those 3 categories that they're first in, and they're all extremely important categories. Red zone defense, scoring, turnover margin. Yeah. I mean, those are all, you could pick those 3 categories. Yeah, those are the 3 categories we want to be first in.
Penn State is +9 giveaway takeaway this year. Penn State has 77 points off of turnovers so far in 5 games. For James Franklin, team speed has made a big difference in the development of this defense.
I think our special teams, defensive speed, team speed in general, it's not even close. I mean, right now I talked to our defense about how we're running the ball, and I think we're running the ball really good. I would say, like a great defense, we're running the ball, but I would still make the argument we probably have consistently 8 or 9 of the 11 that are hauling rear end to get to the ball, every play. And there's a few guys on the backside that maybe don't think they're going to factor in.
There's another factor here too. Because of experience, they're, quote, playing fast. That's not speed, that's recognition, Trey.
Yeah, I mean, again, most of these guys are, all-American high school players. They come to Penn State, they come play in the Big Ten. You're playing against guys that are grown men, 21, 22 years old. The game is a lot faster. The fact is that, we used to run a drill in practice where we used to do an angle drill, where we did that all the time because you're playing against top flight competition. The guys are just bigger and faster now, and with that experience, you're getting more and more comfortable with it.
An example of playing fast and what that team speed does for you is you may know where you want to be, but you can't get there. You can't get to that spot because you're not quick enough to get there. I thought one of the bigger plays of the game defensively was Amani Arawe in the beginning of the second half. Indiana had scored a couple times. Now they have the ball. They're only down 2 touchdowns. And he recognizes the back shoulder play, makes the adjustment, and gets to the spot and creates the turnover and makes the actual pick. If he's not quick enough, maybe he knew to get there, but not quick enough to get there, ball falls incomplete, or it's a catch. But he turns it into a turnover, which changes the game.
And field position has meant everything. Penn State has started from the 35 in the average, the opponent the 23. It's 163 yards per game that Penn State has the advantage in. Huge, what that means. Northwestern's third in the Big Ten in pass offense. It's a pretty good matchup here. Pass offense, Northwestern, pass defense, Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be good until we start bringing the you-know-what. And it's like if he's going to be dumping the ball, he's going to dump the ball really fast because we got a lot of speed up front. We're playing very well defensively, and I think it's going to be a real challenge for Northwestern.
Yeah, 54 sacks in 17 games they've given up for Northwestern. I mean, it's over 3 a game.
Yeah, I think if Penn State makes them one-dimensional, which I think they will, I think it's going to be a long afternoon for Clayton Thorson.
One of the keys, shutting down Northwestern's running game, making them throw the football. Coming up, we go into the film room with Jay Paterno, who joins Todd to break down the Nittany Lions and this game as we continue with more of the Blue White Tailgate after this.
We are back on the Blue White Tailgate, and we're headed into the film room with Jay Paterno. It's brought to you by Beer Bellies Beverage. All right, Jay, you got Northwestern, and Trey was cracking me up talking about the battle of the SAT scores. But what it really means is you've got a well-coached, smart team that plays good assignment football. And Northwestern, they've given us trouble. They've given Penn State fits in the past.
In fact, they've given James Franklin fits since he got here. And let's take a look at this graphic. In 2014, Penn State goes out there 4-0. They lose the game 29-6 at 11 a.m. Tough place to play and get going. 4-game losing streak. 2015, Northwestern comes in here, beats us. We go on a 4-game losing streak. And this is going to be an important game for Penn State because, when you look at what's coming the next 3 weeks, they have an off week, but then it's Michigan, it's at Ohio State, it's at Michigan State, and those are 3 teams that are playing pretty well. So you definitely want to win this one out.
No matter how you get there, you got to get to the bye week, and you want to get there unbeaten. Okay, so defensively, what do you got here?
Well, first of all, let's take a look at Tyler Lancaster. Tyler Lancaster, let's just talk a little fashion. If you're a big man like Lancaster, and he's a productive player, he's a guy to watch, but wearing a number 1 with a horizontal stripe does not have a slimming effect. So makes
he's
him
from
big.
Romeoville. He should know a little bit better about that.
Yes, he should know about what the looks are. But let's talk about Northwestern defense. And they are a bend but do not break defense. And the thing they want to do is they want to keep things in front of them. They want to react to plays and make tackles. They start out in a lot of 2 deep. Here they show 2 deep, which is going to get Penn State into a run play when they're checking. And then you're going to see on the video how aggressively they come down the secondary and make plays. Here's a play, where they get the running back on the edge. You see us do it. Penn State do this a lot with Saquon Barkley on the flare pass. They're going to come down and play that very effectively, and Penn State's got to be ready to take advantage of that and make people miss. They also like to play in those 3rd down situations. They play 2 deep, man under. They like the matchups. The key matchup here, we'll take a look at the video, is going to be the linebacker on Barkley, but he does have deep help. So he can't come up and hug Barkley like they're doing right there with that guy, and then know that over the top he'll have some help, and that's something that Penn State's got to stay out of 3rd down and long. Now, one of the things that I think you'll see Saturday is I think you'll see Trace McSorley have a good day running the ball. Duke really had success with them inside the 10-yard line getting touchdowns, and Penn State has struggled in the red zone. Northwestern's been good in the red zone on defense, only giving up 9 touchdowns and 16 trips in there. But take a look here. They're going to use their back out here in the flare. And again, Penn State's done that a lot with Barkley, so Northwestern can be looking for that. And then they run a little quarterback count on the backside. Take a look at how effective this is. Again, using the back as a decoy, they take the quarterback and run. And Duke's quarterback can run a little bit, but he's not quite McSorley in terms of running. The other thing they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get on the edge, and they've got to hold these blocks. Here's the little flare screen, flare deal here. They'll drop 8 guys, and when they drop 8 guys, it makes it very difficult to throw the ball down the field because they cover up all the zones. But take a look here how effective this is. Again, they run that little flare screen that Penn State likes to Barkley. They come up and they challenge those blockers, and they make the tackle. Now, obviously, Penn State's running back's a little better than Duke's. The other thing they do is when they get into their man situations, they play even if you bunch them up like Penn State likes to do on occasion, where you have a tight end, a wide out, and a back, they play different levels, which is good disciplined defense. What happens a lot of times, these guys get in the same level, they run into each other, but watch how effectively they stay on different levels, and they're able to cover these 3 guys. Take a look at the video here. You're going to see the back comes out of the backfield, the guy covering the back waits, and all of a sudden they're there to cover those 3 guys. So those are things on defense. Penn State's got to be ready to be patient, take what they give them.
Northwestern not normally susceptible to the big play, but with the athletes the Lions put on the field, they perhaps could break 1 or 2.
I think so.
So offensively then, what are they trying to do if Thorson can get enough time? Because they got issues with the O-line.
The most important thing for Northwestern has been running the football. And take a look at this graphic. In the last 14 games, going back a full year, in the games they've won, they're over 200 yards rushing. In the games they've lost, they've been 72. So that's going to be a big challenge for Northwestern. Penn State's had some trouble against the run. But one of the things they do that gives you problems is they get their back here, and you get that linebacker walked away like Penn State does, and they're able to throw the ball over if Thorson has time. So take a look at how they take advantages with Duke. They get a wide out on the linebacker, and Duke's middle linebacker is a good football player. They get over the top of them, they throw the ball in behind them, and that puts them in a bind. The other thing they've done when they've struggled in the run game is they've gotten their running back, Jackson, they've gotten him, even though they have a tight end in the game and a running back in the game, that gives you the look of being in single back. They go to no backs, they get him out here, and here's the pick play everybody's running. Penn State's got to be ready to defend this. Take a look at this on the video where they come in, they bring both guys inside, the guy covering him gets caught up in the wash, and now they've got their back out on the edge. So Penn State fans should look for Northwestern and try and do some things like that if they're having trouble running the football. But again, it's going to come down to how well they're able to get that ball on the ground moving. And if Penn State can stop them, it's going to be a long day for Northwestern.
Hey, look, they talk about Northwestern's defense being a bend but don't break. Penn State's been pretty much doing the same thing. Scoring defense has been excellent so far for them.
No question about it. And Northwestern's one of those offenses that they're going to try and get a mismatch. They do some things motion-wise. They've got guys that are smart players. If Penn State plays discipline, they'll be in good shape Saturday.
All right, we'll find out. If they set a couple of alarm clocks, they'll be ready to go. They should.
It's an early wake-up. I've been there.
All right, Jay Paterno in the film room. We'll be right back with more Blue White Tailgate after this.
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate. We are joined on the phone by Glen Mason, Big Ten Network football analyst. Glenn, thank you so much for hopping on the phone with us today.
Anytime. And how could I turn down someone from Coldwater, Ohio?
Well, hey, I don't really know either, so I guess you're stuck with me for the next couple of minutes. Hey, before we jump into stuff here, Big Ten Network did just celebrate their 10th anniversary, and you've been with them from the beginning. How much growth have you just seen in that amount of time?
Well, yeah, it's truly amazing. You're right. I was there since day one, and in the early days, getting ready, I remember my first game broadcasting was at Penn State, and a week or two leading up to that, I thought, how the heck are we ever going to pull this off, because we're pulling everything together. But in saying that, we have grown leap and bounds, and I think by anybody's expectations, we surpassed and been a lot more successful than anybody could ever imagine.
Yeah, well, congratulations on 10 successful years so far. Now, jumping into Big Ten football, it seems the East has been doing particularly well. What do you see as far as the current state of the Big Ten?
Well, I think the Big Ten is healthier now than it has in any time in the 10 years that I've been with the Big Ten Network. And when I say that, and I know people get upset when I say to some schools, because every league has their quote unquote marquee teams because of long-standing tradition. And the Big Ten, arguably, those schools would be Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Nebraska. And there for a number of years, the only school that was, really living up to those type of marquee-type expectations was Ohio State. Well documented the problems that Penn State had, and Michigan was going the wrong way, and Nebraska, still isn't back to, what they were in the 90s. But in saying that, you look at it, and Ohio State is still very healthy. Penn State is very healthy. Michigan sure has gotten healthy very quick under Jim Harbaugh, and they keep keeping their fingers crossed out in Lincoln. And at the same time, you look at the run that Michigan State has had. Now, they were sometimes last year, and what Wisconsin's been able to do consistently up there in Madison, I think really makes for a strong conference.
You just brought up Michigan State. They were ranked in the top 10 defensively. Do you see them that they're maybe turning back into a team that other teams need to be leery of?
Well, I think that, what happened to Michigan State a year ago, no one saw that coming, let alone Mark D'Antonio, the head football coach. And, it probably was, there were some telltale signs there, but, I thought that they would bounce back, and they've shown signs that they, are bouncing back. They had a, tough loss against Notre Dame where they self-destructed. Excuse me. They really did a fine job against Iowa a week ago. They totally dominated them from a defensive standpoint. They play, Michigan this week, so it'll tell a lot. But I can promise you that Michigan State is a lot better football team than they were a year ago.
And taking that into account, we're just a couple of weeks away from the college football rankings. Where are you seeing Michigan State falling, and where's Penn State going to be, and who are those teams that are going to be ahead of them?
Well, again, we're a couple of weeks away, but Penn State is positioned right now. They've caught everybody's eye, and if they keep winning, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be in the top four in the college football playoffs. But in saying that, there's a lot of football still to be played, and especially when you look at the East Division of the Big Ten Conference, you've got Ohio State, who already has one loss to Oklahoma, but you have Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and they all have to play each other, so something's got to give.
And with Penn State still having all of those big games ahead of them, do you think that makes their 5-0 record more valuable than Ohio State's 4-1, with that loss being to a team like Oklahoma?
Well, I do. I mean, I think that if you're going to lose, you better lose to somebody good, and you better lose early, and that's the case with Ohio State. But I think being undefeated, and a lot of people want to look back to last year, Allison, and say, wait a minute, Ohio State went to the college football playoff, and they got a lot of credit for beating Oklahoma, but they didn't win the East Division, they didn't win the Big Ten. How do they go over a team that did win a division and did win the Big Ten in Penn State? And I think the answer to that is the loss to Pitt. If Penn State didn't have the loss to Pitt early in the year, they would have been in the college football playoff.
It would definitely be interesting to see where those rankings fall. Looking ahead to this week, you've coached at Northwestern before, even though it was a couple of years ago, as we talked earlier. What was that environment kind of like, and how do you foresee this Saturday going for Penn State?
Well, playing at when I was at Minnesota, we played at Northwestern a number of times, and I always thought it was a tough environment to play for a different reason. When you talk about playing at Ohio State or playing at Wisconsin or playing at Iowa, people understand why it's tough. It's really the opposite at Northwestern. It's not your typical Big Ten environment. I was at Penn State last week. You had 107,542. Well, it's not going to come close to that type of atmosphere in Evanston against Northwestern in Ryan Field. So I think what happens to a lot of teams that come in that are normally used to that, it doesn't seem like Big Ten football to them. Sometimes they play down to a level rather than up to their normal level.
Well, Glenn, thank you again for your time with us today. We appreciate it, and we will be right back with more Blue White Tailgate after this.
They're a good football team. I know they've had some ups and downs, but they're a good team, and that is the key: the ups and the downs. The two better opponents that played hasn't really gone well at all. The two weaker opponents that played, they've won easily. So what they've done the expected.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think if you look at what they did against Duke, and Duke ended up, has become a very good football team.
Yeah.
What Northwestern team is going to show up? Is it going to be the team that got blown out against Duke, or is it going to be the team that held Wisconsin tight until the fourth quarter, then before Wisconsin pulled away?
Well, they lost the battle of the SATs at Duke, is what happened.
And they also lost the battle of the SAT for.
I think the Blue Devils threw some questions at them that just what? I don't know the square root of that number.
I kept waiting for Dick Enberg to show up for a College Bowl moment.
I don't know what happened in that one. You guys are absolutely right. They're inconsistent. Maybe they'll be contenders in the Big Ten West. Usually, look, they're well coached, always well coached. They usually make a run at some point in the season that makes you believe in them. They haven't made that run quite yet. It could happen after this particular game, but they're well coached. They're going to be in the right spot. Can they make the plays? Can they tackle Penn State's athletes?
Well, the Wisconsin game's a big blow to their Western Division title hopes, because now they actually have to beat Wisconsin out in the standings. A tiebreaker head-to-head. They've already lost that. Pat Fitzgerald's done a whale of a job there. I don't care what anybody says. This guy has stepped in, and when Randy Walker passed away, he kept the program stable, on a great path. They've now won some bowl games along the way. The guy's really done a great job.
Oh, he's unbelievable. And the thing is, it's interesting because a lot of times you'll have, when you have really good programs, the players will reflect who the head coach is, the personality of the head coach. The fact is the guy was a very, very good college football player very solid, and you see the kind of guys that he's recruiting. It's very much like himself.
Extremely loyal to Northwestern too. I mean, he was thrown into a tough situation at a really young age. I mean, if you saw that graphic, the second longest tenured coach in the conference, and he's only 41 years old. So, I mean, you talk about being thrown in the deep end and learning quickly on the job, and he had to do it.
Third-rated pass offense in the Big Ten. Clayton Thorson can load it up, and he's got some good targets to throw to. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see. Again, are they going to be able to? The mismatch is going to be, can their wideouts make our defensive backs miss? I would be very interested to see Marcus Allen and what kind of game he has, because he's going to be tested.
Ball doesn't hit the ground very often with Thorson throwing it. 91 of 142, and you either have the ball hit the ground or Thorson hit the ground. So with an hitting line on top of him. So, but yes, I mean, they can move the ball. He's going to have to make quick decisions. And, the guys will have to have their head turned around looking for the ball quickly and kind of get them 5-yard passes, 4-yard passes. I think third down distance is going to be really critical in this particular game. See if they can convert.
Different terminology for different teams. Some teams have a tight end, or it's a super back or an H-back. They go with a super back. Garrett Dickerson, very, very good. Austin Carr was his bailout guy last year, then moved on. Now Ben Skowronek has stepped up. He's really his bailout guy right now. So Thorson has a pretty well-rounded game, but as you mentioned, here's the issue, Todd. Can you keep him upright enough to make plays?
Right. Look, defensively for Penn State, you're trying to keep a team under 20 points. You pretty much know you're going to win the game. Right. Iowa scored 19. Penn State was able to get those 21 points late in that ball game. So for a team like Northwestern, you're going to have to do something different to finish drives off, to get big plays. Wadley's not back there. Akram Wadley from Iowa's not back in the backfield. They're going to have to get the ball to the guys that have the most speed, that can do some breakaway plays. And that was the only way that the Hawkeyes were able to go the distance. Penn State has been very stubborn in letting teams into the end zone.
Well, Justin Jackson's been that guy who ran well against Penn State 2 years ago. But Trey, as you said earlier, he's hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, I saw something online where he did not practice before the Wisconsin game. So it's rare you have a guy who does not, practice at all the week of a game. I mean, pro football is much different than college, but the fact is he is dinged up. He didn't play much last game, and I think he is the difference maker for this game. And if he's not 100%, I don't think they have a chance.
13th in the league in yards per game rushing right now. They've given up 15 sacks so far. Now you go to the defense. Defense pretty good except in one big area. They're not very good on third down.
Oops. That's kind of an important area, isn't it? Well, but look, does it match the Nittany Lions, who haven't exactly been world beaters on third down themselves, especially third and short? We talk about this all the time, guys. I'm really interested to see if they come up with something different with third and short situations. And the play that Mike Gesicki got hurt on last week is really a play that I think they're going to need to go to more often, whether it's Gesicki, whether it's another tight end, whether it's Tommy Stevens. I don't know. But I think, the linebackers, if you watch T. Gray Scales last week, Josie Jewell the week before, they are busting in trying to stop Barkley with whatever's going on. I think you can get a guy around the back of the linebackers and get those 6-7 yard passes, and potentially third and short, it might work.
Because they have, between Scales and you mentioned Jewell, Northwestern has that guy. Patty Fisher's a good player at middle linebacker and is very good at it. And the two safeties, Godwin Igwebuike and Kyle Caro. Igwebuike, by the way, making no tackles. Good play, Godwin. But though, up the middle with Lancaster at nose, middle linebacker, two safeties, up the middle, their defense is very good.
Yeah, they are. I mean, and again, it's like we're kind of thinking about, well, we haven't really been running the ball that well, but the fact is, you don't necessarily have to run the ball if you got, McSorley and guys on the outside. And I mean, they're going to have their hands full with our outside speed and our deep threats, I believe. And
if Penn State runs the ball, Todd, what does that mean?
It means 6-0, flat out. I mean, it just means 6-0. And I really think, I mentioned it earlier, I think some of the narrative for this year's team is changing to how good the defensive unit has been. And only two teams going into last week's games that were ranked top 20 nationally in both offense and defense, and that was Penn State and Wisconsin. They certainly didn't change.
Well, coming up, the good, they gave you the good.
I am good.
The good, the bad. You can't call him ugly. I'm sorry, you can't do that. And we'll also take a look at our picks for the week as we continue after this. Look, this show doesn't mess around. We get right to what you want right away. That is the good, the bad, and, of course, the ugly. This week, we start with the good, and we allow Trey to be good.
So this is what I think is good. So we have the Gillikin family and the Fessler family, both from Penn State, both from Northwestern. Blake Gillikin plays at Penn State. Tyler Gillikin plays for Northwestern. Billy Fessler, Penn State. Charlie Fessler for Northwestern. So you're these two families, and of all the people in the stands, you can't lose. Because if Northwestern upsets Penn State, you got one kid on the team, and if Penn State wins, then you got another kid on the Penn State team. So I just think that's a really cool story. I think it's really good. I heard something where this really has never happened before. We have two sets of brothers playing against each other. I think that's really good.
Taryn Gilligan, by the way, is going to be wearing a split Penn State Northwestern jersey in the stands. They're going to switch sides. All right, now for the bad. Good is at Washington State. I think I picked that game. Beat USC. Fans pour onto the field. One of the USC guys hit one of the fans. Now it's causing a brouhaha. Stay off the field. The field's for the players. Okay? Yeah. Bad.
Yeah. I just want to say, that was really good, Trey. You should be good more often. And I'm going to be ugly.
You know what, though? His hands were shaking as he was doing it.
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
enough.
So I'm going to go with the ugly. I'm going straight to Knoxville. And I used to work in Knoxville before I came back to Pennsylvania. I love the city, love covering the Vols down there. It is getting really ugly down there for Butch Jones. They were whooped 41-0. They're calling for his job. That is a traditional place that you'd like to see them doing well. They were just in the Outback Bowl against this Northwestern team. Whew, things have really gotten ugly down there.
Ed Orgeron at LSU has a $12 million buyout. And this fan started a GoFundMe page to buy him out. They're at $275, just a bit short. All right, let's get to our picks. Jay, you've got West Virginia and TCU, brought to you by #1 Cycle Center.
This could be a very interesting game. West Virginia is 4-1, and really they're one play away from having beaten Virginia Tech and being undefeated themselves. Both of these teams would be playoff teams if that were the case. TCU wins this one because they're too good on defense and too good on offense, but it will be close. But the Horned Frogs win it in Fort Worth.
All right, Jay, I've got Miami and Florida State. Florida State, big quarterback problem right now, not playing well. Miami's playing well, but not great, but Miami gets the call in that one. All right, Trey, you've got Wisconsin at Nebraska.
Wisconsin at Nebraska. Here's the deal. Wisconsin's going into Lincoln. I think they're going to really take it to them. I think that Mike Riley is really on the hot seat at Nebraska. Having Wisconsin roll in the way that they're playing is not going to help him any.
Fourth time ever, Todd, that Michigan has hosted a night game in Ann Arbor. It's Michigan State.
Yeah, I like them at the big house, but you got to watch this game all the way till the end. You never know. Even if there's a punt at the end, something crazy could happen, but I'm going with the Wolverines.
All right. Keys to the game, I get to start this time through controlling the Northwestern running game. When they've run the ball well, they've won. When they haven't, they've lost. I think it's pretty simple there. Winning the giveaway, takeaway battle is going to be important in this one as well, and getting the running game going.
Yeah, I think the keys to this game is that the intensity of the team. I mean, again, we talked about it earlier in the show. It's a 12 o'clock kick. It's 11 o'clock our time for our guys. Came off a big win last week, and I think the intensity, when you see the first few plays, I think that's how it's going to play out.
Just keep doing what you've been doing. Keep them out of the end zone. If they drive, hold them to 3 or make them punt. Keep them out of the end zone.
And when the way Penn State plays, you play with the lead.
Yep.
Play with the lead. You do that, make them play uphill, it makes a big, big difference. All right. So Penn State Northwestern, noon Saturday, Ryan Field in Evanston. For Trey, Todd, Jay, Allison, I'm Steve. Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate Show.